Hi everybody, this is Angie from Tourangie.com, and this is a little video doing Wyoming Street down to Union basically. I've done this drive before. It was going to be a different drive and we missed the turnoff. I was going to take a right and we missed it to take a different route, a different road that we have never been down before. But unfortunately, we ended up just doing Wyoming and in on down to Union. You're going to see some road issues along the way. There's lots of potholes and different things. But before I released this video, I was glad to see that on Union Street they started fixing some of the potholes. So way to go, City of Bluefield, for fixing some of the potholes. Bluefield really works hard to fix the road and do the best they can to fix issues in the roads. So I'm very happy about that. The video does get a little dark, and I want to apologize for that too. It's a cloudy day, and when there's no sun, and then the trees blocking a lot of the light, it can make for very dark videos, so I want to apologize for that too. But I found a great little article. It was written Bluefield Daily Telegraph, and it was back in the 90s. So it talks about history, so we're going to do it in several parts over several videos. So this was part one, and this is basically the 1890s. So I'm going to just read you the article. Bluefield in the 1890s was a community that essentially was devoid of structure. In the previous decade, the Norfolk and Western Railway had driven a single rail through the century-old Davidson family pasture on its way to the coal outcroppings in Pocahontas. But after the discovery of the natural gravity hump in Bluefield, where coal cars could be moved with little effort to form the east and westbound trains, the history of the city was set. In a handful of years, the population grew from just the Davidson, Higginbotham, and Bailey families to 1,775 people. And by the 1890 census, rapid growth had changed the area basically. Rapid, unmanaged growth was characterized by a sense of lawlessness. An example of this can be seen in the fact that the city was chartered in November of 1889, and the first police chief, W.S. Johnson, was hired in January of 1890, but was murdered 1 month on the job. When Hugh Eichschott arrived on the scene in the first half of the decade, he must have looked upon the busy railroad yard and dirt streets, frame buildings, coal cars, and people, and realized the opportunities that were here ripe for the picking. Unlike many who came to the region penniless in search of jobs, Schott had both a job with the railroad as well as a little money to invest in a business. He was a printer by trade, so he selected the newspaper trade. There was a sincerity contained in the editions of the Bluefield Daily Telegraph printed in the 1890s that provided a thread of continuity that spans the 100-year history of the newspaper. One of the first things Schott sought was a sanction from city government to serve as the city's official record. He received the distinction, and the newspaper has maintained the same commitment throughout the years. Newspapers have evolved through the years in America. Today's editions represent an attempt to compete against the electronic media as well as other newspapers. But back in the 1890s, the competition was on one level, and Schott proved time and time again that he could go head-to-head with any other news vehicle and whoop 'em in a fair fight. The basic tenets that governed the early editions of the Telegraph still exist today. As time went by, Schott used the newspaper to influence public opinion. He also found it could be a tool to improve working and living conditions in the region. But beyond the Schott influence on the Telegraph, which is considerable, the newspaper itself represents the one business that grew from the N&W discovery of the hump on the Davidson's farm and survived enormous economic and social change to remain essentially intact as it looks forward to serving the area in its second century. Well, that about does it. I was glad to read you that little article I found talking about the 1890s a little bit. I did not realize that the first sheriff was shot within a month on the job, so that was pretty neat. So, shout out to Bluefield Daily Telegraph. Yeah, the media has changed, the Telegraph over the years, and but the shot influence is major for Bluefield and the newspaper. So, just figured I would tell that little story, and there'll be more to come from that 1993 issue of the newspaper that talks about history. Well, this is Angie from Tourangie.com. I'm sorry that the video got dark, but between the leaves on the trees, it happens. Talk to you all later.